So, hello everyone, and welcome to A Culture of Mental Health, a meeting that Geraldine from LAHWN and me from LAHWN and Forum Central created to come together to discuss urgent priorities in arts and mental health and share some of the great work happening in Leeds and beyond. As we decided in the last session, the theme for this session is the arts and social inclusion. So exploring the incredible ways the arts facilitates meaningful participation, connection and enrichment that supports people to live well. So I mentioned briefly, but for anyone who doesn't know me, I'm the Senior Mental Health Development Worker at LAHWN and Forum Central, and we represent and support the health and care third sector in Leeds, which includes arts organisations. I'm sure you've seen already, but this meeting is being recorded, so if you're not comfortable, please let us know or turn off your camera. And we encourage you to all introduce yourselves in the chat so we know who's in the virtual room today. So, I put the timings for the day up on the screen there. Me and Geraldine will share some brief thoughts. We'll have some amazing case studies, make connections in breakout rooms, come back to share, and then we'll send 2 links out, which I'll do in the chat as well as the session goes on. One's voting for the topic of the next session, and the other is an open spreadsheet we can use as a group to continue to build partnerships after this meeting. So I suppose all I wanted to say before passing on to Geraldine is that we're in the middle of a culture change towards the social model of mental health, where the context of people's lives, their experiences, cultural engagement, circumstances and social connections are being recognised as vital determinants to their mental health, and that we're broadening what we view as mental health support beyond traditional mental health services, and really understanding as a city that when it comes to addressing mental health inequalities, the arts are playing an incredibly important role. We know there's already amazing partnership work going on across arts and health, and Leeds Arts Health and Wellbeing Network is an incredible example of that. So basically what we want to do is keep creating spaces and opportunities to share learning and for those partnerships to be formed. So this is one of those spaces with a focus on mental health. That's all from me, and I'll pass you over to the brilliant Geraldine.
Oh, thank you so much for that introduction, Sarah. So just to start off, it's really wonderful for everybody to be here together today, and I'm so glad that we've secured the speakers, Viv, Jogger and Hannah, who are meeting with us today. And just coming to the end of Time to Shine, which has been a long-running programme addressing social isolation and using arts approaches, such as Immature Company, which is a dance programme in care homes that has been using movement, dance and music to support people, including those living with dementia. And that work has secured further funding, and feels like in Leeds we have such a number of rich opportunities where we use arts in its widest forms to engage people, to involve people. And many people that I have met in my work as participants in the arts have described how that has been the mechanism by which they have found recovery, such as Deb Steele, who is in Calderdale, and found that she was able to reduce her need of using medical services, of using prescription medication through her involvement with art. So her story is really fantastic and one we might all learn from. Another thing I'd just like to bring your attention to before we start the meeting is that one of our LAHWN members, Minoti Parike, has just been working with the Bearing Foundation, the Culture, Health and Wellbeing Alliance across the UK, around rethinking the role of creativity in mental health, and with some suggestions. So I'll pop that into the chat just to bring that to your attention. It's the result of a 6-month project interviewing people across arts and mental health and creativity, thinking about that area of work. So how I'd like to just start off is to introduce our speakers, Hannah, then Jogger, then Viv, just to talk a little bit about their experience of working with people, working with social isolation, moving towards social inclusion, using arts. Hannah, would you be okay to start for us?
Yeah. Hi everyone, can you hear me okay? Yeah, great. I run a project called Cultural and Social Outings, which has just been relaunched. We've got another 3 years funding. It began as a Time to Shine project, and basically it's organising day trips which are available to anyone over 50 who is either experiencing or at risk of social isolation or exclusion. We also use the term cultural exclusion because we recognise that a lot of cultural activities are particularly something that people are excluded from for various reasons, whether that's not having transport, not having somebody to go with, not even knowing that things are happening, not knowing what they are exactly. Also, if we're going as part of a group, we might get extra activities that wouldn't be available normally to people going on their own. So if it's something I haven't been to before, particularly, that's useful to introduce them. So it might be a bit of a talk, might even just be a bit of a welcome, just introducing somebody to the venue or the project, or, you know, if it's an exhibition or something. And all the sort of practical things as well to do with access, where the toilets are, where you can go and eat your sandwich, whatever, just making people comfortable. But also it depends on the location and the site and what's available, but we might also get a bit of talk or a tour or something like that. So it just helps with everything, with confidence, with people feeling comfortable. And in the social aspect as well, because if people haven't maybe had an opportunity to talk to each other, that might provide that opportunity where they start asking questions and finding out more about where they are, that kind of thing. Yeah, so we basically go to lots of different places. They might not all be sort of reflects what you typically think of as arts or cultural places or activities, but it's, you know, that wider definition of culture that Geraldine was referring to. So it might be an art gallery, it might be an art activity, it might be a combination of things, but it might just be a walk in a national park, it might be a heritage site like Bolton Abbey. So we're talking about architecture, garden design, all those kind of things. And obviously we have to remember that even when we go out into what we might call nature, they're very much man-made or man-managed, person-managed environments. So it's all part of our national culture and heritage. And a lot of these places, maybe people who have transport or somebody to go with take those opportunities for granted. You know, just going out for a drive in the countryside, it's not something that's there for everybody. And increasingly we've found that maybe as people get older or are living on their own, even though they might have transport, they don't want to use it, they don't want to go out and drive on their own, they'd rather somebody else organises that side of things. Or they just, you know, even if you've got a car, you don't want to have to use it all the time. But for those who haven't got their own transport and haven't got a car, we go to increasingly a lot of places that you wouldn't be able to get to with public transport, or at least not get there and back in a day. So that's an added reason for people coming. But the reasons people are either wanting to take advantage of the opportunities or feeling like they might be isolated or excluded are very wide ranging. So it might be, like I've said, you know, it might be that someone lives on their own and doesn't have someone to go out to places with. It might be not having transport. It might be they've recently retired. Obviously now it might be that they've been not going out for the past couple of years and just lack that confidence. Some people just aren't aware of what's out there. So, you know, obviously with my arts and culture background, I know of a lot of places and opportunities that exist that aren't necessarily well known about, and I've either got contacts or I can make contact with people and other organisations. One of those that we made contact with last year is the Yorkshire Dales Millennium Trust, who work to bring groups to the Yorkshire Dales who wouldn't normally get that opportunity. But again, because we're going as part of a group, we're getting a lot more of an insight into the sort of maybe the working lives of people who live in the Dales rather than just visiting as a visitor, and you know, extra activities that we get access to as well. I feel like I'm rambling on a bit now, so I'm going to stop. And yeah, if anyone's got any questions, or are we just going to deal with that later?
Yeah, well, we can pick up in the breakout rooms and at the end. But yeah,
Okay.
thank you so much, Hannah, for just just introducing such a wide range of what arts can be around culture and heritage and the great outdoors. Jogger, this feels like a good time for you to come in.
Wow, my camera's rubbish, isn't it? Hi everybody. Thank you. That was brilliant. That was really good information, and I'll be in touch. I think sounds great. Yeah, so I'm Jogger, also known as Jonathan, and I help to run the Man About Town project. So the Man About Town project is a male suicide prevention project that we run with Clothcat, the Clothcat Music Charity, in partnership. And we started out just about pre-COVID. We got running at the end of 2019, and the idea behind the project is to offer within arts, and particularly digital inclusion, I was quite interested in at the very beginning, was to offer options. I think I possibly felt a bit frustrated about very kind of going back a few years. Really, I was involved in volunteering at a community centre, and there was very little for men to do, and this was 20 years ago, and it seemed ridiculous that 20 years down the line we're still having these same kind of issues with provision for men. So I wanted to broaden the offer. So we looked at music provision, film, photography, and digital arts, which was specifically around virtual reality. So this was all lovely pre-COVID. We had spaces to go into, we had lots of participants, and we got up running pretty quick. So for about 3 months, everything was great. Then when COVID hit, very rapidly, we adjusted the model almost within a week or so. And for each of these headings, so the music, the film, stroke photography, and digital arts, we just ran with different things. So that really formed what we do now. It really shaped what we do now, because we're not really out of that landscape properly, I don't think. So so we looked at digital arts, we looked at music, and film, and photography, and that became so what do we do with music? What can you do with music? We tried Zoom, not good. You know, it just didn't work. It's rubbish. So that was never going to work for us. We have to interact, we have to be together. So we took the opportunity to go out into the parks, right? So many parks in Leeds, so many amazing spaces, and this really took the direction of the project somewhere completely kind of complete odds to what I was kind of originally visioning, which was amazing, because it just kind of opened up so many options for us. So we went to the park, we had vinyl picnics, we took we still do this, we take records out into local parks, put the blankets down, get some food out, play some records, talk about music, talk about why we bought the record, what gigs have we been to, what gigs are we going to. People bring guitars, you know, there's a performance element to it. So this was great, you know, and this was during summer. It was lovely. Then, you know, we started the vinyl picnic. Now is we've got a permanent base up at Gotts Park, so we're nice and warm. We've got tea on the go and stuff like that. I'll list all the things in a moment, but essentially COVID has opened up the discussion so that kind of naturally we moved to this co-production model, where the conversation I have, if anybody's referred in now, the first question is, what do you like to do? And that has just spread out the possibilities, just unended, really. So now we do, I'll give you, I've got a list here because otherwise I would forget. So we offer digital, so digital inclusion was always a big thing for me. So we look at a thing called tech troubles. So we've helped people obtain laptops, obtain cameras, look at the software that needs to go with those. How do you use that software? How do you even get it on the thing in the first place? Smartphones, how do you use smartphones? What's the best contract? You know, some of our guys are terrified of technology. They just don't want to, they do want to engage with it, but they don't know how. And so we had a little bit of a window, a little bit of an opportunity to meet weekly and look at those issues and ask them, what's going on? What's the issue you've got? You know, what's iPlayer? What's a hashtag? you know, the things that we just take for granted were causing real anxiety among some of our guys. So we do that. As I mentioned earlier, you know, Leeds is full of these green areas, amazing spaces. So we go on walks bi-weekly. We take a walk on a Sunday morning, 10:30 to 12:30, and that means we can spread out the activity. We can see some guys over in Seacroft, or we can see some guys over in Horsforth. Never the twain shall meet, I should point out. But why should they? You know, we go to the areas where there's the need, right? So so there's parks everywhere. We still do the filmmaking. We did virtual reality. This is just to put out there to, if you know got any guys who might be interested in this stuff. We run a ukulele group. That's a constant every Wednesday at Oblong. We do songwriting. We're back in Old Chapel, starting in a couple of weeks. The songwriting for me has always been about creating something new, not necessarily learning songs that somebody else has written. Making something new, making a new song, whether it's the film, making a new film. You know, it has to be about creativity in the sense of getting your own thoughts out, your own ideas out, and we facilitate that as a group.
Okay, I think we'll have to stop there for now,
Okay.
but hold that thought until our breakout room. So Viv, if you could tell us a little bit about some of your work with LCS14 Trust.
My name's Viv. Isn't it wonderful how you do technology? Like Jogger says, don't know about hashtags, don't know about things. And that is kind of me. It worked yesterday. I feel very Blue Peter when it worked yesterday and it's not working today. But there we go. So the presentation will be sent on if anybody wants to see it and hear it. But I'm a qualified art psychotherapist. I came through art therapy and social inclusion by volunteering at the LCS14 Trust, which is based in Seacroft. Having work-related stress asthma, left my job, didn't know what I was going to do, was stumbling around in the dark. LCS14 Trust gave me the place to think about what that might be and how that might work. I went off and qualified as an art psychotherapist, but felt very much that it was only going to work if people could access support and therapy in their own community. They had more chance because, as probably, and I don't want to teach people how to suck eggs, that things work in people's communities where they have access to it, where they feel they can trust people, where they feel something is going to be regular. And the great thing about the work that I do is it has that symbiotic relationship between arts in health and art psychotherapy. So when people come into activities, or if they come to the food pantry, or if they come to get financial inclusion support or anything else, and they hear about what I'm doing, they might either self-refer or are referred into either groups or one-to-ones that I run. I have another 2 years of funding with Live Well Leeds, and hopefully we're hoping that will continue to offer free one-to-one and group therapy to people who live in a Leeds postcode area. Like Hannah says, the natural environment, you know, going to arts and culture places is kind of what I try to build in, particularly with groups, but also one-to-ones, taking people out and connecting with the museum in Leeds and the arts galleries and things like that, but also as well connecting to the other things that are local or citywide. So Jogger, yes, definitely be getting in touch, but definitely be letting some of the guys that I work with know about what you're doing and how they can link in with that, and anybody else that's got things going on. Very interested, because that, to me, therapy is always a time-defined process. And I can talk to you another point about what art therapy does and how it works, but really this is about social inclusion, and for me that's the key. The key is how I can help and enable people to then go on to do the other things that they want to do. And as people come through our doors and they come up into the therapy, and I'm in a very privileged position where people will tell me about the things they used to do or would like to do, or have, you know, whatever is going on for them. I can, as I come back down through the stairs, something like that. So we're going down the stairs. I go up and down every day. And I can then say, can I introduce you to such and such? can I tell you about? And it is those, as people have mentioned as well, it is those personal contacts that build up over time, and they come in and think, actually, this is not a bad place to be. It also helps with that destigmatization of mental health and needing mental health. And as far as I'm aware, in the 7 years that I've been doing this, where I've been doing it, I have never had one person say to me, I felt uncomfortable, people were looking at me, or people, you know, people thinking, what is she or he or they doing here? People kind of know, and they hold everybody in mind. There used to be a gentleman before COVID who would sit in the cafe space, and he was like my MC. He would hold people really well, people who thought that they might run back out the door, and he'd say, sit down. He'd never get up and make the tea. He'd say to somebody else, can you get this lady or this gentleman, can you get them tea? And she'd be there in a minute. I never asked him to do that. I never thought that that would happen. And those things that just happen naturally, where people can see other people are, you know, a bit on edge, not sure, and they hold that space. And that's an amazing thing to see. So I'm very interested in working with arts in health and with arts psychotherapy, because I see that they go hand in hand, or dovetail, or, you know, sort of on, you know, around the same thing, where I might then refer back into different activities. And also people then have felt confident being in a group or being with other people, might have some of the things that are coming up that aren't appropriate to discuss in that group, or explore in that group, or exploring that setting creatively. And so therefore then I've had people say, I've got a referral for you. So building up that confidence to be able to think about art making. It's not always about art making. Sometimes we just sit and listen, but there is that process there of things going on. I've got a resource pack. I've got a video when it works, and I will leave it there. If anybody wants to talk to me afterwards, you are more than welcome to do so. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Viv. So what we were going to do is have some breakout rooms, which Sarah will be organising now, and that's just going to give us a chance to reflect on what we've heard, think about our own perspectives, and where we might see opportunities to partner or to work together more closely. So yesterday I was running an event on social prescribing and what that looks like in Leeds. We've also talked in that event and elsewhere about ABCD, or asset-based community development, where we're linking in people to what is strong in our localities and our communities. But in this discussion, I think we're just looking a little bit more broadly about arts and mental health, and how we might bring in arts into how we think about mental health, into how we think about well-being. Something that's been coming up this week as part of Social Prescribing Week is how we socialise rather than medicalise, and I think maybe that feels quite relevant to our discussion today. So Sarah, if you could get us chatting. Thank you.
You should have the invite now, so if you accept it, you'll move straight into the rooms. Thanks, everyone.
We're all coming back at the moment. Welcome back, everybody. I hope in the breakout rooms you had a real chance to ask questions, answer questions, just ponder on some of the things that we've been talking about. I know I did in my breakout room. I just wondered, is there anybody who would like to share some reflections on what they heard when we broke away from each other? Apart from there was not enough time. Just take your mic off and start talking.
Yeah, there's definitely never enough time, is there, in the breakout rooms, but there's some really nice conversations in ours just about, I think, what we all know, just how vital the arts and are to people's longer term mental health and well-being. And you know, some of the conversations I was at Forum Central here all the time about needing to ensure that projects are funded sustainably to enable project coordinators to really get the time to promote what they're doing, to connect with other professionals, to reach out to people and create, you know, services that are really trusted and that are going to stay around for a little while. So there was quite a lot of conversation about that.
Would anyone else like to share any reflections?
Just more around just trying to make sure that, like my breakout room, we touched on the fact that there's so much going on in the city regarding arts and health, but there needs to be a bit of a streamlined way of don't know, just feeding it back so that people can tailor it or share that information in a tailored way with their service users. So yeah, it was quite interesting in our breakout room, just talking about that.
Yeah, well, if it's useful, Leeds Arts Health and Wellbeing Network puts together a bulletin every month or twice a month, just sharing all the research, things that are happening. Very happy for anybody here who wants to share their practice to get in touch, and then you end up being a speaker on something like this if you don't watch out. In my breakout room, we were talking about how important it is to make time to be aware of what's going on around us, whether that's linking in with social prescribing or Arts Together, which is a network of community organisations and arts organisations. Whether it's being in a setting like a care home and knowing what's going on in your community. There were people in this conversation who I'm sure could help with that, and we had a really good conversation there. And I think we were also talking about how when we spend time with somebody one-on-one as Joggers and Man About Town or as a group, what valuable time that is, how that time is so well spent. And maybe there are opportunities such as Eve was telling me how that she's doing a lot of work around addressing stigma behind mental health, but maybe hasn't explored how arts and arts activities could make a difference to the people she works with. So feels like we've got a lot of opportunity here to work together. And Sarah set up a spreadsheet so that the people who came today can start getting in touch with each other and having conversations. If a conversation is useful with me, I'll do my best to arrange it face to face, but it might have to be over email at the moment. Yeah, I'd really welcome more conversations. Sarah, is there anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, just to emphasise what you're saying, really, that this is the beginning of conversations that we want to continue, and that's what the spreadsheet's all about. So put your contact details in, stay after this to chat, and let's keep making and strengthening those connections. And just thank you all for coming.
So yeah, we'll be sharing a spreadsheet around after this meeting. We're going to share the recording in case there's anything you'd like to rewind. So everything that happened in the breakout rooms is not going to be in the recording. It's just going to be the talking and conversation. And we're leaving the Zoom meeting open. So I appreciate many people have to go. But if there are any questions that you'd like to have, if that's helpful, do feel free to stay. I know some people like Jogger have to go to Huddersfield, so they can't stay around with us. But yeah, so feel free to leave if you want to, feel free to stay if you'd like to continue the conversation.